Howdy, I'm OldR and I'm the host for today's Single Scoop episode. During the Favorites of 2023 episode of the main podcast, I mentioned that I watched 200 Pounds Beauty and wanted to talk about it. I rewatched it recently and took notes, so I'm going to start this off by talking about the plot. Quick disclaimer, this will have spoilers. Kang Ha-na is a talented singer who has a crush on the producer she works with, Han Sang-jun. She's a total sweetheart and looks out for people, such as her father, who has dementia and confuses her with her mother. Even though she's a good person, there's one problem that holds her back from her dreams: her weight. Due to her appearance, people don't treat her kindly and opportunities aren't open to her. For example, despite Hana being a good singer, she's expected to provide vocals for the singer Ami to lip sync to while she's hiding under the stage. After overhearing Sangjun badmouth her, Hana makes a drastic decision to leave her old life behind, and that eventually leads to her getting extensive plastic surgery. A year later, she's ready to live as a beautiful girl. People fall for her easily, and she finally gets to achieve her dream of being on stage with Sangjun being the producer for her debut album. But in exchange, she loses herself along the way and struggles to figure out who she is. Here's some basic information about this film. The Korean name for this movie is Minyonin Gerowo, which translates to Beauty is Painful. The English name is 200 Pounds Beauty because her original weight is 100 kilograms, which is around 220 pounds. It was based on a late 90s 5-volume Japanese manga by Suzuki Yumiko, but except for the general premise of the main character undergoing major plastic surgery to improve her appearance, the movie has no similarities with it. The manga became popular in Korea after it was translated into Korean. The rights to turn it into a movie were originally obtained in 2002 by Genesis Pictures and was publicly announced in 2003. There were articles mentioning it over the years until February 2006, when it was announced the two leads had been cast and filming was set to begin in May. It was released on December 14th, 2006 by KM Culture and Realize Pictures. It's approximately 2 hours long. It was a hit and not only brought in 6.6 million viewers, but also got into the top 10 Korean films of all time list a little over a month after its release. At the Grand Bell Awards, it won for Best Cinematography and Best Music, and the lead actress won for Best Actress. In 2008, KM Culture announced that there was going to be a sequel and stated the plot for it. The new story was going to be about a woman with similar circumstances to Hana who got married and had kids, only to find that they looked like her pre-surgery. There were names attached to it, but after announcing auditions in late 2009, it didn't pan out. That said, there was a Japanese movie based on the manga that did come out in 2009. Additionally, a musical was produced based on the Korean film that went from November 27, 2008 through February 1, 2009. The role of Hana was double cast to be played by Yoon Gong-ju and Bada from SCS. The musical was a hit as well. Getting back to the movie, it was directed by Kim Yong-hwa, who you might know from 2023's The Moon. Kim Yong-hwa wrote the screenplay along with No Hae-young and Kim Sung-jung. Moving on, let's talk about the cast. This list is longer than usual because there were so many big-name actors in this. First up, Kim Ha-jung played the protagonist Kang Ha-na, as well as her other identity as Jenny. While most people probably know her from this movie in particular, she was also in other works like 2014's Punch. Joo Jin-mo played Hana's crush and producer Han Sang-jun, who you might recognize from Empress Ki. Song Dong-il played Chae Sang-jang, who was Sang-jun's brother and also worked at the company. He was also in dramas like Hwarang, The Reply series, and My Girlfriend is a Gumio. Kim Hyun-suk played Hana's best friend Park Jong-min and was also in Are You Human Too? And Alchemy of Souls. Im Hyun-sik played Hana's father. This actor has appeared in many iconic works such as Jewel in the Palace, Sandglass, and Taza. Lee Han-wi played the plastic surgeon Lee Gong-hak. He was in classics like Autumn in My Heart, Spring Waltz, Coffee Prince, and the recent hit True Beauty. Ji So-yoon played the singer Ami. I've seen some places write her name as Amy, A-M-Y, in English, but if you look at the wall behind her during her concert, you'll see her name is spelled A-M-M-Y. Then, Park No-suk played the Jajangmyeon stalker, which, yes, that's how he's officially credited. If you've seen the drama Voice, you'll recognize him as the bus driver who had a bad trip. Also, we did a single scoop episode on Voice recently, so I recommend you check it out after you listen to this because that's a good drama. And finally, Kim Yong-gun played Sang-jun's father, who was the head of the entertainment company everyone works at. He was in works like Summer Scent and Cinderella and the Four Knights. Normally, we want to mention idols who appeared in these works. We don't have an idol here, technically. But an interesting bit of trivia is that the lead actress, Kim Ah-jung, was supposed to debut in a 3-member girl group in 2001. However, they ended up disbanding before their debut due to circumstances at the company. Sangsang Band's Veni was also in this film and played the singer Pink, which has no relation to the actual artist of the same name. Finally, the band Schizo made an appearance in the film at the beginning during Ami's concert. Now that I've tried to be as informative as possible, I'm going to talk about my opinion of the film. To start off my list of things I liked, I love that the lead actress Kim Ah-jung went into this with both feet. I'll talk about this more in the OST section, but I appreciate that she actually sang 2 of the songs in the movie. She also gave some interviews that I think showed that she gave this movie her all. There was one where she talked about gaining weight in high school and how hard she worked to lose it. And I don't know the exact circumstances of this, but according to another interview, at one point she went around Gangnam dressed as Hana pre-surgery. Nobody recognized her, and she said that she felt like crying because people were gossiping and staring at her in a way that I assume was different from how people normally treat her. The cast and crew had seen her with the fat suit and makeup, but I don't think she was prepared for how the average person would perceive her. It's not just Kim Ah-jung who was a great choice for casting. Her and Joo Jin-mo were so expressive with their faces. There were times when Sang-joon would look over at Hana in a car or he would watch a video of her and he was so in love. The supporting cast also sold it as well. Aside from the cast, I also enjoyed the writing of this movie. There were a lot of parallels, such as after her surgery, she celebrates by fitting both legs into one leg of her old pants and hopping around. She's referred to as being half the person she used to be a few times, which was such a good contrast to this. Additionally, maybe it's because I recently watched a movie where this was a problem, but I love how there wasn't an exposition dump at the beginning of the movie. Instead of introducing what's going on primarily through text or a long dialogue, this movie effectively conveys information through simple visuals. Early on, there's a scene where she's at home working as a sex line operator, and during that we see her dog do a trick that we see later in the film that confirms her identity. It didn't feel like any detail was wasted in this. For example, she buys a car because the dealer calls her gorgeous, and then almost immediately she gets into a wreck. But then we see the car return much later in a totally different scene. Then there's her experience with her first love that has similarities with her friends, and she uses that wisdom to confront her friend's ex. I also enjoyed how the main theme has nothing to do with appearances so much as identity. It explored what happens when you get what you've dreamed of so fast that you struggle with adjusting to it. It was supposed to satirize society's obsession with looks, and I think it did a good job of that. Additionally, some of the dialogue is so good. By that, I mean like when she's beating up her friend's ex-boyfriend in an elevator, which is a hilarious scene, and yelling at him that dating women like them who aren't conventionally attractive aren't charity cases. But in another scene, Hana and her best friend Jungmin have a confrontation. Hana wants to confess her feelings to Sang-joon, but Jungmin warns her not to do it. Hana thinks it'll go okay because she's pretty now, but her friend responds that she only looks that way now from plastic surgery, and because of that, she's a monster. One thing that really stuck out to me was when Jungmin said, quote, "All men are the same. They say plastic surgery is okay, but not with their girls." Unquote. And I think that statement is a perfect example of how great the writing in this movie is, because there are a lot of times when an issue in society will be vocalized in a way that's worded exactly like how it is. This movie seemed to resonate with a lot of people, which is fair because there are scenes that show the struggles of being a larger person, like when medical professionals struggle to lift a gurney with Hana on it. Kim Ah-jung talked about how she's changed her mind on plastic surgery during filming, as she realized that people don't just do it for vanity. For some, it changes their quality of life. Additionally, a doctor who works with treating obesity wrote an article reacting to the movie. He said that a patient gave him a ticket and he watched it with his family. Afterwards, he told them that he enjoyed it, and then the patient told him that they cried while watching it. This made the doctor reconsider his understanding about how patients feel about weight and obesity, which is similar to Kim Ah-jung's conclusion. He also clarified the reality of getting liposuction and why you only remove so much during surgery. He wasn't buying the movie's depiction of losing all the weight through surgery, but I disagree with him on his second point because this whole process took a year and she didn't just get liposuction. She also got a nose job, among other things changed. And also there are scenes of her cleaning out her ramen stash and running on a treadmill. So she likely also worked out and tried to work on losing weight and didn't just rely on the surgery, although it did clearly help her. But to be fair to this doctor, I have seen this movie multiple times, and I assumed that he only saw it once in theaters. So give him a bit of credit. If he'd seen it more than once, he might have picked up on that as well. But to end this section on a lighter note, I love Hana's debut concert. I doubt this would happen in real life because people can be jerks, but the crowd cheering her on after she breaks down and admits the truth was so heartwarming. She's coming to grips with being half the person she used to be and having an identity crisis over it, and the crowd shows compassion to her. When the video of her singing pre-surgery is shown on the big screen because Songjun turned it on and he knows the real Hana and is showing the world the person he's loved all along, they don't abandon her at all. In fact, it's the exact opposite, where the Jajangmyeon stalker, who's like her first fan, he starts the chant that gets the whole stadium chanting, "Don't cry." Again, I don't think fans would be cool with that in real life. I highly doubt that a senior artist would get it, let alone a newbie who's just debuted, unless they are a fan of K-pop, which, as you'll remember from the K-pop episode, when Yubin admitted to not doing his own vocals, the fans went, "Yeah, we were aware and we still love you." But I think that's more of the exception than the rule. Regardless, it was so nice to see that in this movie. As for things I disliked, I have one main gripe. There's a conversation between Songjun and Ami that I think was a bit absurd because it was out of character. She played a mean prank on Hana and then he pulled her aside to rein her in. At first he was saying stuff like, "Miss Backup Dancer Days," but then he says, quote, "You don't have to remind her what a turnoff she is, let her be," unquote, and quote, "Hana is the one who should be crying. She's talented, but she's ugly and fat. You're untalented, but you're gorgeous and sexy. You have everything. She exists for you," unquote. For a dude who's always in Hana's corner and defending her against everything and everyone, it's such weird dialogue. He never talks like that for the rest of the movie, even when he's mad at Hana later on. I know that he had to say something in order to push Hana to progress the story, but it just didn't match the rest of the dialogue for him. Moving on to the soundtrack, there are quite a few songs from there. Before her surgery, Hana sings 2 songs. The first is "Miss You Much," which was a remake of Janet Jackson's "Miss You Much" and was sung during Ami's concert. The other one is "Star," which is a ballad that shows how Kang Hana can sing beautifully and with emotion. "Star" becomes a reference for Songjun to show what a good singer is like and who Hana was. Both of these songs were actually sung by the solo artist Yumi. As mentioned earlier, Kim Ah-jung was the lead actress and originally trained to be a singer. 2 songs are sung by her, both appearing after Hana's surgery. The first is "Beautiful Girl," which is a bright song that was used primarily when Hana has confidence in herself. The second is "Maria," which is a Korean remake of "Maria" by Blondie. Hana goes by Jenny after her makeover, and this was her debut song. It's used as a push and pull between her insecurity and her confidence. It topped the Bugs chart for over 4 weeks and won Song of the Month at the Cyril Digital Music Awards in January 2007. Loveholic makes an appearance on the soundtrack with the song "Superstar." Interestingly, the director of this film's music was Loveholic's Lee Jae-hak, and it was his first time as a director. The final song I want to talk about is "Dance with My Daddy" by Alex. It's a gentle song that sounds like it came straight out of a music box. It was used when Hana was dancing with her dad, who thinks he's with his wife. It's bittersweet as he asks about their daughter, and it's one of the few times he talks conversationally. Before wrapping up, I want to suggest a few dramas that are in a similar vein as this movie. If you're looking for Korean dramas that deal with dramatic transformations, you might want to check out Oh My Venus and Birth of the Beauty. Oh My Venus focuses more on the process of losing weight and shows her changing over time. As for Birth of the Beauty, the main character changes more for revenge, but unlike 200 Pounds Beauty and Oh My Venus, they cast a different actress for pre-surgery. They're all shooting for something different, so I think it works. If you're interested in a drama that depicts the music industry around the time 200 Pounds Beauty was released, I hesitantly recommend Over the Rainbow. I haven't seen it in over a decade, so I'm not sure if I should be recommending it. There are some things about the music industry mentioned in this movie that are echoed in that drama, including faking vocals. It's also got Hwani from Fly to the Sky, so that's cool. I've been meaning to watch it with JR, so whenever we get around to cracking open that box set, we'll do a single scoop on it. To wrap up, 200 Pounds Beauty was a hit for good reason. It discussed difficult topics like weight and plastic surgery, but didn't make it as big of a deal as people and their identity. In my opinion, the actors were great, and the screenplay was mostly well written. I saw this movie advertised on Yes Asia back in the day and had thought about getting it a few times, but I don't think teenage me would have appreciated it as much as adult me. If you haven't seen it yet and want to check it out, I watched it on Viki, so hopefully it's still there by the time this comes out. But that's it for today. Thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode, then please make sure to rate, subscribe, follow, and tell your friends about us. If you want to interact with us or just see more of our content, then you can follow us on Twitter at K-Pop Sundae or on our other social media platforms, which will be in the description. More single scoops are coming your way soon. Thanks everyone. Bye.